Our plan, like most plans Benny and I hatched, was a simple one. Rocket scientists we weren't. Step 1. Learn where Mr. Hanzomon worked. Step 2. Sleep out at night and go visit his office. Step 3. Snoop around until we learn something about the monsters. Step 1 and 2 were simple enough. When we said we wanted to write the scientists a thank you letter for the iPads, Mrs. Johnson shared his business address. Glad to see you are not trying to convince me to let you into the maternity room, said the principal. We've learned our lesson, said Benny. We hadn't really. All we learned was to be snittier, and we put our snittiness to good use that night. After my dad had gone to bed, I crept into the kitchen to collect some helpful supplies. I was loading up my book bag when I heard the telltale clickety-click of Doddy toenails. Zippo padded up to me. He wagged, giving me the Bambi eyes. Once a moocher, always a moocher. Go away, I whispered. Shoo. But he just sat there, tongue hanging out. Zippo the Chowhound was convinced that any time someone entered the kitchen, it was time to feed him. As I shut my bag, he began to whine. Shush! I checked the hallway door. The last thing I needed was to wake up my dad. All right, you win. Opening the fridge, I scrounged up some leftover chicken and dropped a chunk to the floor. Zeppo pounced on it like Spider-Man on Doc Ock. That gave me an idea. I popped some hamburger into my bag, just in case the Hanzomon office had a watchdog, and I tossed another chicken morsel to Zeppo. While he was occupied, I tiptoed back to my room and slipped out the window. Benny was waiting in the field between our two houses. Our bike stood beside him. You are late, he whispered. Doddy blackmail, I said. Let's go. Like a big fat graffiti artist, the moon had painted the trees and bushes with silver. As we threaded our bikes down the trail, TV noises still arose from our neighbors' houses, so we kept our trap shut. An image of my dad sleeping entered my head. Was he dreaming of my mom, or dreaming of life without her? I shivered. When Benny and I reached the street, I pushed the vision away. Time to focus. We mounted up the pedal down the street. Hey, what if this Hanzomon guy has guard dogs, said Bunny. Thought of that, I patted my book bag. Then my face fell. But what if he has actual guards? Bunny's smile flashed milky white in the moonlight. I brought a distraction. He waggled his eyebrow. You know, between the two of us, we actually kind of smart. Then how come we gotten into so much trouble? Bunny pursed his lips. I did say kind of. We paddled on in silence for a while, past the empty little league field, past the construction site, skirting areas where people might spot us. Before long we reached via Margrada, which wound out through the low hills just outside the town, rich people territory. When the road turned steep, we walked our bikes, stopping at last in front of some fancy wrought iron gates, right out of a Dracula movie. Bunny checked the address. Here we are, he said. Office, suite office. I took in the ivy-covered wall, the security lights, the nearly empty parking lot, and the electronic gizmo that controlled the day. My muscle felt twitchy. Suddenly this didn't seem like such a hot idea. How will we even get inside? I whispered. It's probably locked up tighter than Fort Knox. Bunny waved off my worry. We'll find a way in. They always do in the movies. Yeah, but Bunny, what? This isn't the movies, I said. Nevertheless, we'd already come all the way out here. Might as well give it a try. We stashed our bikes along the side of the wall and checked the street for witnesses. All clear, the neighborhood was as quiet as a puma hiding in the long grass. Despite my sudden conviction that this was a very bad plan, I followed as Bunny began stealing the thick ivy stalks. Up we climbed until we swung our legs over and sat astride the wall. I was relieved to find no barbed wire or broken glass up there. For some reason, this billionaire wasn't all that worried about security. I didn't know whether or not I should be worried about that. Check it out, Benny whispered. Behind the wall sprawled a massive three-story structure. It looked like a Spanish castle and the Ukrainian embassy had had a baby, then buried in it in bling. The place was all golden gargoyles and turrets, onion domes, and red tile roofs. Just a wee bit unusual for an office. Up top, a spotlight illuminated the blue Hanzomun International sign. The lower two stories were dark. Lights showed in only three top-floor windows. Perfect, said Benny. Sure, I said, if you're a billionaire with more money than taste. The ivy grew more sparsely on the inside wall, but it was thick enough. Benny began his descent, and with a sinking feeling in my gut, like the one you get just before the roller coaster plummets, I followed. Paving stone traced a dimly lit path between bushes, shaped into wolves and mastodons and prettier hedge animals. As usual, Bunny plunged ahead while I brought up the rear. When the pathway forked, we took the turning that seemed to lead toward the back of the building. So far so good, Bunny whispered, but I wasn't so sure. This kind of garden might have real animals in it. My busy imagination supplied tigers, Dobermans, and hungry Komodo dragons lurking around each corner. Also visions of my dad's disgust and disappointment when he came to identify my remains. Sneaking out of the house was one thing, sneaking out and getting eaten while trespassing was a whole other ballgame. So when something rustled in the bushes to our left, I nearly leaped out of my skin. What was that? We froze, the moon ducked behind the clouds, and the dim garden lights revealed nothing. Probably just a possum, whispered Bunny after a tense pause. Come on. More slowly now we crept along the path. When we were almost even with the office building, the rustling came again. Possums are shy, I whispered. Yes, so? So why is this possum following us? His reassuring grin looked a bit frayed around the edges. It's lonely. Just 20 steps more to the nearest side door. For me, those steps wouldn't come fast enough. Hurry, I whispered. One path curved around one last shady bush, and Then we reached the other side. We met the possum. Only it wasn't a possum. Grr. It was a dog. No, scratch that. It was a three-headed dog growling in a rough harmony. This monster was the size of an Irish wolfhound, with a red rimmed glare and a man that moved. One head was wolf, one was rottweiler, and a third chihuahua. Don't laugh, they're small but vicious. My insides turned to possum soup, and my heartbeat hammered like a nail gun in my ears. When I looked closer, I couldn't believe my eyes. That wasn't a mane around its neck. It was a living collar of what looked like electric eels. Their mouths gaped, and their tiny eyes stared, hungry and remorseless. I, I started, butting into a bush. "This," said Benny, his voice as tense as a tea party with a tiger, "would be a good time for your destruction." As we kept edging away from the dog toward the building, I fumbled with clumsy fingers to open my book bag. The creature's six eyes tracked my every move. It growled, stretched up, going from